Welcome to episode 101 of Chatting with Nuts. I had to do a little dramatic pause there because we are now in the hundreds. We're now in the 3 digits. You may have noticed that the channel name has changed. It's no longer the Fantasy Network, but Chatting with Nuts seems like a more appropriate channel name. I kind of announced at the end of episode 100. Probably should have did it at the beginning, but we don't let silly things like details get in the way here. If you're not familiar, I am your host, Jimmy R.R. Martin. That's right. Also known as Jimmy Nuts, but for tonight, we will be Jimmy R.R. Martin. Seeing as it is Halloween, if you're watching this after the fact, you're probably wondering why in the world am I in this costume? But I thought, what better way to celebrate than to dress up as the man himself, George R.R. Martin, my favorite author. It's going, I gotta tell you guys, every time I do one of these costumes, I cheap out on it as much as I physically can. And I pay for it every time. They put toxic chemicals. There's hair now in this drink. I have to drink through a straw. It's very distressing, but I do it for the lulz. And you might be saying, Jimmy, that's 2 gimmick live streams back to back. Is this a thing? No, I have just lost all ability to do things in a normal way. I mean, we are at the rock bottom of creativity here. Had to change the channel name. Couldn't even come up with a good channel name. So just went with the show name. We're down bad. I guess I'm having writer's block. Okay. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween. Glad you're here. Lovely people. Oh my goodness. This is terrible. This is going to be bad. 2 hours of this. This is going to be really, really bad. So you may be wondering, why is this called Chatting with Nuts? Well, every single stream now is going to be Chatting with Nuts, and they're each going to have, you know, their own themes, or maybe they're just a conversation like Chatting with Nuts has been over the last 6 years. I don't really know. Have a lot of cool ideas, but this is still in a nutshell. So we're still going to cover everything I read this month, which happens to be the spooky season. And I surprisingly actually stuck to the spooky season Halloween theme, something I failed at in the last few years. And I didn't just do the default like booktube thing and read Stephen King. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I've done in the past, but I was like, let's read. Oh, this is terrible. Let's read something else. Right. So I did. I read 2 classics and I'll talk about them at length. And then, of course, we'll be doing the Patreon pick. I'm swallowing an uncomfortable amount of hair right now. This isn't good. This isn't good. I don't know how George does it, to be honest with you. Simon, with the early super chat, thank you so much, said, I'm here tonight to ask tough questions. Why is Jimmy so handsome, awesome, and well-read? Well, it's because he reads me, George R. Martin. Trick or treat. And Simon, thank you for the 5 spots. Very generous of you. This channel basically lives off of super chats and, of course, our Patreon, which we greatly appreciate. And the Patreon pick tonight, random, who knows? If you're tuning in for the first time, you want to see me talk about books and you don't want to have all this jibber jabber in between, you don't want to see me interacting with the chat, there are going to be timestamps below after this thing goes off the air. Mrs. Nuts is so gracious in taking time to do those timestamps, as well as all the designs here that you see tonight and the thumbnail. I forgot what it was called. So let's give it up. Round of applause for Mrs. Nuts, of course. The cheap costumes are objectively funny. I would like to think so. Trick or treat. You don't want to smell my feet. Am I right? Or am I right? Jimmy's suffering for his art. I would like to think so. Belltube says, finish the book. I'll tell you what. Just for you, Brian. Just for you, Brian, I might. Fairy Tale Phillips said, can't fall asleep. Maybe you can help me. If there's anything I can do, it's put you to sleep by talking about boring books and how much. And I got a couple boring ones on here this month that I loved. Nice glasses, man. Thanks. I got them from Jared Henderson's dumpster behind his house. This is where I found them. Derry, George, if you just bought a quality beard, you'd be able to wear it more than once. You wouldn't fall into your drink. Well, I'm going to be honest. That's about half Blue Moon and half whatever this is. And I'm just swallowing hair rapidly. If we get interrupted tonight, it's because it is Halloween and there are trick-or-treaters literally right out this side of the house. And they're all probably on the street wondering, why are there blue and red lights in this person's window? They probably have great candy, except we're not handing out candy this year because I'm doing this. So here we are. Rogue said, let's be honest, episode 101 can't be anything but a step down from episode 100. I completely agree. Happy Halloween to all. I am so glad that you've all joined me. I hope that everyone has had a wonderful month. I hope everyone's enjoyed Halloween. If you celebrate, my celebration is just watching a couple horror movies, which I've lacked on, admittedly, this year, but I'm getting caught up, fortunately. Jose, good to see you, my friend. Thank you for the compliment. You also have a nice beard, my friend. I'm glad we didn't scare you off at the Kingsguard hangout. Josh said, pull the mustache off. It'll still work. Abe Lincoln pulled it off. Well, Josh, I'm not Abe Lincoln. I'm George or Jimmy R.R. Martin. So no, we must stick with the bit. Germ hates children confirmed. Interview the trick-or-treaters instead of giving them candy. I feel like that's breaking some sort of a law, unless if I have them sign a waiver. But actually, what if I handed out books next year? And I just live streamed the disappointment in the children's faces. They're like, what is this? That'd be amazing. So Sam Wise said, if you dress like Kelhos for Halloween, you could scare off the trick-or-treaters. They wouldn't even know what hit them. They would have no idea. Kev said, artificially inflating CWN numbers by changing the channel name and calling everything CWN. Incredible. Listen, if anything, I'm a strategist. Okay? Satanic black magic, sick stuff. Could not agree more. Reading with a rec and a call said handing out books would be expensive, but also amazing. I actually really like that idea, but like always, I'm always late with good ideas. I'm late to everything in my life. And this is no different. So who knows? Let's talk about what I read. So good reading month. Like I said, I stuck to the horror theme. I also had a Patreon pick, which is going to be the first book I talk about here, is from our good friend Yolanda from StoryTube. Carlos is also involved, but Yolanda is definitely the A side of that channel. And this is a book that she's wanted me to read for many, many years. And it's going to be the first book that I talk about here tonight. I also have a lot of plans for reading in November, for better or for worse. It just looks like my November is completely booked. So I know everyone's going to enjoy watching me spin the wheel, and undoubtedly drawing like a 13. The Count of Monte Cristo is what I'm assuming I'll draw, or War and Peace, or some nonsense in the month that I literally have no time. Like, I am so stacked. There's maybe a couple days in there for the Patreon pick to be fit in, plus the holidays and my birthday. My birthday's this month in November. So you know how it's going to be. You guys will love the tension. Derry said, I love that, Red. Trick or treat. Answer a question first. Read any good books lately? Good answers get the full-size chocolates. That's honestly such a good idea. All right. Shall we talk about some books before I go too much further off the rails? And I just want to say, if you're watching this after fact or live, appreciate you being here, of course. So let's talk about, by the way, I also got suspenders. Can we give it up for me? Can we give it up? That's right, Beps. George R. Martin's finally on the channel. Okay, first book is the Patreon pick. Like I said about Yolanda picking this and having just a ball watching me react to this. It's Power of the Dog by Dawn Winslow. I need you to know right up front before we talk about this book, there is another book called Power of the Dog. I talked about it when I drew the book, by Thomas Savage. That also happens to be a 5-star book to many people. This is the one about the cartels and drugs. This is not the one that is about something else. I think it's like on a farm or something like this. Anyways, it's not the Thomas Savage one, though I do actually own it and want to read that one as well. Maybe I'll do a Power of the Dog versus video and get some cool graphics or something. But Power of the Dog by Dawn Winslow is almost hard to put into words, but the story is rather, I don't want to say simple because there's a lot going on in it, but it's a bit simple in the regard that it is about people moving drugs, doing illegal things, and how truthfully there are absolutely no winners in this game. And even whenever the bad guys are put down or they're arrested or whatever, there's just a power vacuum and it all starts over again. And it really does leave you with a sense of this being rather helpless. This book has been very well revered. I think it's supposed to become an adaptation at some point. There was rights. I think he bought him back. There's a big thing with that. I think this would make a great television show for sure. If you're a fan of Narcos or you like the south of the border stuff and Breaking Bad, you have to read this. I just think it's absolutely astounding. But this is part of a cartel trilogy, but everything I know, you do not have to read the whole trilogy. You can just read this book. They're kind of standalone installments, I think. I hope I'm not wrong about that. I'm actually going to read the other ones. I'm going to read some other Dawn Winslow first because he kind of blew me away with his writing and just how just how impactful every single thing felt, every single sentence. I mean, could just take your breath away, not because of beauty, just because of the leverage of it, or the levity of it, rather. This book is the most violent book I have ever read. So if you are squeamish, if you're not into that type of thing, you have to steer clear. Though I will say, like, so for instance, I know Yolanda loves this book. I know a lot of other people have given this 5 stars that are not people that gravitate towards like things like Blood Meridian, for example, or overly violent things. So even though the violence is definitely a core part of the story, it's not the whole book. It's not shock value stuff. And in fact, this is the saddest part about this book, is that I'm pretty sure you could find a real life analog for every single thing that happens in this book. And I'm telling you, when I tell you it is violent, it makes the Old Testament, you know, look tame. I mean, it is really that impactful. It's crazy. It is crazy. It kind of spans over many decades and an effort of trying to kind of quash these cartels and the inner workings of them, and a whole lot of, I almost don't want to call it politicking, but we'll say maneuvering. And there are people that you follow for a certain amount of time, or over the entire time, and they change. You maybe thought of them as good, then they're bad, and then maybe the bad kind of feels good. But the most impressive thing about all of this is that, you know, I've watched a lot of like mobster movies, Goodfellas, whatever it might be, or anything that kind of revolves around the illegal trade of narcotics or weapons or firearms. And it's like always somewhat glorified, even if that's not the point and that there's like a turning point. There's always someone who walks out of like Wolf of Wall Street being like, I want to be like that guy, whenever that's obviously not the lesson you should take away from it. I don't think there is literally anything you could take away from this book to be like, you know what, that sounds like a good idea. He never, ever glorifies it. Usually it's built up, glorified, and then torn down. Don Winslow doesn't do that at all. From the get-go, you realize that there is just no one's going to walk away okay from this. And that is true for pretty much every single person. The twists and the turns that this book take are easily in the top echelon, if not the most surprising that I've ever read. Things were happening on the page, and like this book grabbed the hold of me, didn't let me go. I think I read it in about 4 days. This is not a skinny book, as much as I wish it had been, because, you know, I love short books, but this thing just went by so fast. Don Winslow has just a magnificent grasp on how to keep you engaged in the story, even with time jumps, even with switching POVs. It's incredible. I was shocked. You know, obviously cartel stuff. The second chapter, you're going to be with the Wild Irish up in New York City. And then somehow that connects to a brothel of sorts and a prostitution ring. And all these things come together and just make this tour de force of like violence and consequence for the illegal drug trade, among other things. So I just think that this is absolutely fabulous. It's 100% in the running for, it's definitely going to be in my top 10 books of the year. There's almost no way it can't be. And it's probably going to be in the running for book of the year at this point. And that list is pretty short. There's only maybe 2 other books I was considering for that.
Nut.
This is getting the nut button without a doubt. Don Winslow is now just catapulted so far up on my TBR for many of the things that he's written about. And he doesn't just write about cartel, by the way. He has a bunch of other stuff. But I'm telling you, if you've been like wanting to dip your toes in crime fiction, I have to imagine that this is a obvious place to start with just how good it is. I thought the characters were so conflicting based on what side they were on, and then based on what they were doing at the time. There were people who I thought were absolutely despicable. And then he would have this like little bit of a human moment. And there's even romance in this book that's pretty decent. And in those moments, you almost forget that when they wake up, they're about to go do some of the worst things ever, or have the worst things ever done to them. And it's just like this wild situation where like there are people living these lives like right now and have for decades or centuries, you know, whatever situation. It might not be the cartel, but of any sort of crime living. It's just incredible. The only thing I will put another forwarding out is, man, Don Winslow loves him some sex scenes, and he likes certain phrases kind of a little bit over and over. There was one, and I can't remember it currently, But you might, if you're sensitive to that thing, you're definitely going to want to skip over it. As Americans, for some reason, we love a good beheading, but man, do we hate when people do it on the page. We hate that. So you can skip over those parts. The sex scenes are very graphic. There's particularly one that's like, all right, Don, you typing with one hand over there? What we doing? But nevertheless, despite that, and despite the fact that it is such a violent book, I mean, this book trumps Blood Meridian in violence. And I don't say that because it's like sick and cool and edgy, but I'm trying to give you a warning of what you're walking into. Easily one of the most chaotic, fascinating books I've read this year and of all time. The Power of the Dog, I should have read it 3 years ago. That's my only regret about this book, is I didn't read it sooner. So great writing, nut button, book of the year candidate, absolute home run, and not for the weak of heart. I don't know. I ended this book and was like, you know what? All this stress I'm dealing with currently, not so bad. Life could be a whole hell of a lot worse. So hopefully I did an okay job of kind of covering this and giving some sort of context to this book and how much I liked it without giving away too much. Sorry, there's so much hair in my mouth. It is definitely one of those books I would rather you go into with no expectations, which honestly is the truth for one other book on this list tonight. Just go into it. Don't look anything up and just read. It starts out a little slow. Things get set up, but I'm telling you, once this thing kicks into gear, it just never, ever, ever stops. I can't talk to the crime genre because I haven't read a lot of it. So I'm not going to make these grandiose statements. I do think, as someone who's looking for entry points, I think this is a good entry point. But Carlos and Yolanda at StoryTube have read so much crime fiction. And this, I think, is held up definitely in their top 3. And Yolanda's probably favorite. So that's coming from somebody who actually has some skin in the game and has some expertise that I don't. So if you want to hear more about Power of the Dog, or if you read it and you want some more content about it, StoryTube actually has a discussion about Power of the Dog with a bunch of great people, and you should go check it out because it's very entertaining. And this is a book that you will absolutely tell people about when you finish it, if you can get through it and you enjoy it. I've already recommended this book to like 3 or 4 people. Mrs. Nuts is reading. My best friend Andrew is about to finish it. This is like one of those books I'm throwing in people's faces for sure. And if you're looking for a book to get somebody for the holidays, this is probably one I would recommend, to be honest. As long as they're, you got to know them well. Don't just, oh God, do not just hand this to a random person. Just know that they can handle it, because I'm telling you, it's dark. It's really, really dark. So let's go to the chat and see what people think. I just absolutely thought that this was fantastic. So good. Oh, StoryTube is here, said, this is the best day of my life. Yolanda actually requested, and she knew I enjoyed the book, but she actually requested I do it early so she could go to sleep, because she usually turns into a pumpkin well before chatting with Nuts. So shout out to Yolanda, not only for a great pick, but for staying up as well. Shot said, great book. It's one of my faves. I could see why. Like if someone came up to me and said, yeah, Power of the Dog is my favorite book, I'd be like, yeah, I get that. I can understand that. I've never read anything like it in my life. It is so crazy. It's a bananas book. I feel like I'm not like selling it enough, honestly. K Fox said, careful with those. My dad wore suspenders for a wedding once and never went back. I'm not going to lie to you. When I put them on, I did the old snapperino and I was like, this might be it. This might be it for me. Maybe it's time. I'm taking Advil every day. I'm getting a little older. I grew this beard, maybe it's time. I have to like rip this thing. I'm swallowing so much hair. Okay. The Power of the Dog is pretty straightforward. Yes. Yeah, I would say so. I would love to see as a TV show. I think it would be an absolute magnificent HBO show. I agree with you, Rodrigo, for sure. StoryTube said the Force or the Winter of Frankie Machine might be interesting next steps for Winslow. Far more contained, both distinct flavors. Carlos. Very good. I was going to ask you. I have City on Fire on my shelves. I thought about starting with that, or going next. You're correct. He wrote this as a standalone, then wrote 2 more sequels because real life continued the story for him. So you can reach one as a standalone, but if you want more, it continues. Sounds a bit like the movie Sicario. I'm never sure how to say this, and I've just avoided saying it, even though it's been on my watch list forever. I've not actually seen this yet. I want to watch it, though. Mitch said, as always, I shall read it for all the wrong reasons and take away all of the wrong lessons. Your thoughts on my co-opting of your reads? Mitch, I support this full-heartedly. Are we to understand Mr. Winslow is a Don in the cartel? That is a great joke, actually. Hats off to you. I have to maneuver this straw into my mouth because I'm going literally cotton mouth. I assume this is all cotton. Joanna said, hi, Germ in chat. Power of the Dog sounds like a banger. You should read it. You should all read it. I read this after watching Breaking Bad. Different vibe. Yeah, that's why I said the south of the border stuff in Breaking Bad, I think is like kind of like similar in some ways. Like if you would like more of that and to see more of it, that could work for sure. Are you still doing Lit Fic of the Year and Science Fantasy Fiction of the Year? If so, do you know where you'd place the Deluge, assuming that's a candidate? Well, I'm not going to give away any kind of rankings. Also, I haven't really thought about it too much, but I can tell you the Deluge is the front runner along with Power of the Dog and probably James from Book of the Year. I have not decided whether I will be splitting up into genres. I might split them up into genres because I've also read a lot of other genres this year, and then do an overall category as well. That'd be kind of cool. Power of the Dog and Jimmy's Top 10 life goal achieved. If you accomplished it. Brian Bell said, you had me at graphic sex beheadings. Don typing with one hand, Kev reading with one hand. It sounds like you guys are on the same page. Derry said, would you have appreciated it as much 3 years ago, Jimmy? You know, this is a great question, Derry, and I think about this a lot because anyone who's watched my channel for a period of time has seen, you know, my taste evolve. I'm into different things. I'm always trying out stuff. And usually I do say this about a lot of my favorite books, like Cloud Atlas, for example. I said, you know, if I read this 3-4 years ago, I wouldn't have enjoyed it. I think you could read Power of the Dog anywhere along your reading journey and enjoy it. So I actually think I would have loved this 3 years ago. I do. I think I would have loved it 10 years ago. Like, I think at any point in my adult life reading this, I would have loved it. It's just compelling. And yeah, it turns the stomach. I mean, there was some stuff that made me like kind of have to like sit the book down for a little bit. It was that bad, but without a doubt, it was captivating for sure. Bart's Bookspace said, adding this to my TBR now, typing with one hand. Oh, man. Coben Varney said, No Life Forsaken, my book of the year. I'll tell you what, if it keeps as it's going right now, I'm reading it, it's up for discussion. Holy goodness. It's so good. Same Jimmy, whenever I'm having a bad day, I think, well, at least I'm not involved with the cartels. Hey, it could be worse, right? Need a Gurm food description in his next book about how the hair we now know fills his mouth regularly. That's a swing and a miss there, David. Your other comments are far better. Of course, Jimmy talks about my favorite book of 15 years, and it's much more eloquent than I've ever been about it. I love how much you loved it. I am certainly not feeling eloquent tonight. I'm gonna love with you guys. I don't feel very good. Off and on all week, I've just not been feeling very, and I don't mean like sad. I mean, I'm always sad, but like physically, I don't feel very good. So my apologies if I seem a little scatterbrained. And it's very hot under these lights, or I have a fever. Who knows? I'm not sure. Hairy palms means, oh my goodness, not sure what a hairy mouth. You don't want to know, bro. Much like glitter, Jimmy will be finding long white hairs all over his house for the foreseeable future. This is not even a joke. Already happening. Rid said, know what I'm getting for grandma. Well, if your grandma loves overt violence, I think you got it. K Fox said, I'm definitely too much of a wimp for this one. I would not, anyone that wants to bow out knowing that it's the brutal, I would not blame them at all. I did talk a little bit about Blood Meridian. I want to kind of make this point because I am comparing the violence because Blood Meridian is largely considered to be one of the most violent books written, at least in America. And The Power of the Dog, I think, is just as or more violent, but the difference between them, and this is coming from someone who 5-starred Blood Meridian, and I love Blood Meridian. The Power of the Dog is just a far better story. Like, Don Winslow is doing things, still with themes and with shock and awe, but he's also telling a very real story, a very entertaining story that has a through line and is just gripping on its own. Like, the plot points are all very, very engrossing. So I think it's just a far better book, in my opinion, than I think it's a far better book than Blood Meridian. And I don't say that to like diss Blood Meridian, but I just want you to know that if you are like, oh, I hate Blood Meridian, I don't want to read this, I want you to know that the comparisons are only in the violence. Okay. Gurm doing anything but finishing The Winds of Winter, shaking my damn head. Hey, Sonny, I was at New York Comic-Con. Let me tell you something. I had fans out the wazoo. Dunk and Egg coming in January. I'm the executive producer. Oh, we love a good crappy Gurm impersonation, don't we? Don't we? Perfectly pronounced. Thank God. Thank God. I'm just going to throw this out there. Hey, Red, don't be spoiling things in the chat, please. I'm not going to ban you or anything, but don't, you know what I'm saying. City on Fire is also a good next step. Fun trilogy, extremely fast. Okay, it's a trilogy. It's out. The Power of the Dog is amazing crime fiction. Recommend The Force as well. I think The Force is one of the ones that Carson Yolanda also recommended, so that's 2 votes for that. So, hey, maybe that's where I'll go next. I think that's weird. Jimmy has a fever. Is it a fever dream? Maybe. So Sir Jordan Drew, our boy, said, finished Blood Meridian yesterday. This sounds like something I'd love. Jordan, I have no idea why you haven't read this yet, but you got to remedy that. And I would put a large amount of money on the line that you are going to absolutely love The Power of the Dog. If you don't, I'll be shocked and color me embarrassed. I have a very, if I had to recommend it to one person on YouTube, it might be you. So you should read it, please. Jimmy, who's your pick identity for Corporal Hasten Thenu? I'm not going to say because I feel like that'd be a spoiler. Let's keep it all spoiler free in the chat. Do you have trains to show us tonight, Germ? No, I do not, unfortunately. The only thing I have is Game of Thrones cups. That's kind of my train obsession, I guess. If you're going to do a Germ impression, you got to do the click off the tongue against the roof of your mouth between every pause. I tried. I hope Germ isn't dying under the light he's under. It's getting rough. It's getting rough. Oh, okay. Nino said, I was born in Juarez. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. And live in El Paso now. I left right about the time the war on the cartel started, so was spared having to see the worst of it, so I just don't like reading about it. That is so valid. And I think I am very privileged to be able to read it from very far away, if that makes sense. If someone had to live this type of reality, there's absolutely no way I would imagine that they would want to read something like this. So I don't not blame you. And honestly, just feel so much empathy for people who would ever have to even be around something like this, because it's rough. It's rough. Oh, you're good, Rodrigo. I don't know what you're apologizing for. You're fine. You're totally fine. Okay, shall we go to the next book? And guess what? I bet you can't guess. It's a sequel. It's a sequel. I've read more book 2s this year than book 1s. Let me repeat that. I've read more book 2s this year than book 1s. Did I just make that up on the spot? Yes. Do I think it's true? I actually do. But someone can, go fact check me on Goodreads. But I'm pretty sure that I have started more book 2s than book 1s this year, which is a huge step forward for me. Let's be honest. Eyes of the Void by Adrian Tchaikovsky. The Final Architecture trilogy. I was very high on Shards of Earth. I read it with Sir Jordan Drews actually in the chat. And I realized that me and Jordan probably should talk about this if he's read this. But Eyes of the Void is a sequel that in the first half of the book, I was like, absolutely 100%. This is better than the first book. We're moving along now, and I love it. And I'm going to say, this is mostly positive. I have some things I want to, say that are cons for me personally. But I still think this is a very good sequel, and I am going to read book 3. I am so enamored with the science fiction piece of the aliens, the originators, and the architects, all of it, the unspace, all of the stuff that's in this book that is sci-fi elements are just outstanding. I thought the characters got better in this book. I still don't really care about any of them, but that's not necessarily a Tchaikovsky problem. That's more my problem. It takes a lot for me to get into characters anymore. I don't I could speculate why that is. Maybe I'll do that on a Chatting with Nuts at some point, do an autopsy on me being a character reader. But Eyes of the Void does everything a sequel needs to do. It does make it more interesting. And I was kind of flabbergasted by the first half of the book because so much was happening. And there's this big kind of like climatic like sequence over many chapters that felt like it was kind of a climax. Unbeknownst to me, there was more book to go. I knew that because it's quite a large book, but it had a lot of really high moments and some good stuff, good developments of putting people in places that I was not expecting. The thing about Eyes of the Void, and the reason why I kind of teetered off on a little bit towards the ending, is because I felt like the end of book 2, the end of book 1 has this huge drop of knowledge and realization. And it is such a hook. I mean, it is such a good hook at the end of a book 1. You couldn't have done better. Like, you really, really would struggle to do it any better than what he did. However, by the end of Eyes of the Void, we leave off on almost the exact same kind of sentiment or statement or information that we learned in book 1, with like a little piece of it going a little bit further. Like, well, what if that's not the only thing, or whatever it would be? I can't really say because it would give it away. But my point is that the cliffhanger from book 1 is kind of still the cliffhanger in book 2. And we did all this stuff. We went all these places. We found a bunch of stuff, artifacts, whatever. But it never like jumped to the next level for me, to where I was almost like, man, I wonder if this should have been like 2 800-page books. Now, I haven't read book 3, so book 3 might change my mind about all of this. But I start to feel like, oh, are we writing a trilogy for trilogy's sake? Because the ending point here is kind of the same as book 1. And that was the piece that hooked me. And I kind of waited this whole book to get a little bit more. And we get a tiny smidge more about it. But it's still the driving question going into the third and final book. I'm pumped for book 3. There's a lot riding on the resolution of this. I'm usually not a person that's too wrapped up in endings. Everyone knows that. It's watched this channel for a long period of time. But this is one, I'm telling you now, I need a rock solid ending and plot resolution, because that's what I'm here for. I'm here for the elements. I'm here for the mysteries. Very similar to something like Sun Eater. I've gotten to the point in Sun Eater where it's like, okay, this plot has to pay off. I haven't read book 6, by the way, but book 6 and 7, we got to do something with some of these big questions that we have going on, because I'm not that invested in the characters. And there's another thing I gotta say about Adrian Tchaikovsky that is just something that I've noticed, and I've wrestled around with it, because I think some of it is necessity. I think some of it's publisher. But Brandon Sanderson gets a lot of crap for being repetitive in his books and repeating information. Robert Jordan also gets it. Robin Hobb in the later books, absolutely guilty of it. And I don't like when other authors do it either. But if we are going to give someone like Brandon Sanderson a whole lot of hell for being constantly in the mode of reminding us things that we just read, or we read at the beginning of the book, and really holding our hands along, then we have to say that Tchaikovsky does the same thing. There were multiple times in his book where he was repeating information like, well, of course we know that the architects wouldn't go to this planet because there was originator artifacts there. It's like, we know, you've told us this. And in book 1, there was this weird thing, like 150 pages in the book where he almost recaps the entire prologue. And I asked the question in the review, or my recap of it, I was like, I wonder if an editor made him go back and write a prologue. And that's why the prologue is explained in the book. And they were like, hey, you should write that. And he just left it in. But I'm sorry. We have to, if we're going to hold everyone else to task, we have to hold him to task. Some people don't care, by the way, and that's totally fine. It just bothers me a little bit. And there were all the way into the end of the book, there were still reminders of things that honestly, if you're reading and you hadn't caught on or remembered that, you're not reading closely enough, I guess. I felt like he wasn't trusting me to remember any of the information. He does do a decent job of contextualizing the reminder within a conversation that does make sense, but it's hard to not see it as forced whenever it happens over and over and over again. So for me, these are just nitpicks as I read more and more of this author. But for all of that, Am I still super interested? Yes. Am I hyped for book 3? Absolutely. I would really like to read it by the end of December. And I'm not someone that like rifles through series very quickly. We all know this. This is probably the fastest I've read a series in a long time. That should tell you something about how entertained I am. The Mass Effect, the Mass Effect appeal to this is there, but I would say it's not like the driving force anymore. The driving force is more of the actual original ideas. I'm sure someone did it before him, but the original ideas to me that Tchaikovsky is doing here. So I'm hyped. Eyes of the Void was a good book. Shards of the Earth was a very good book. And I think that Lords of Uncreation, which is, by the way, the coolest book title I can think of. I think it's literally the best book title I've ever heard. Lords of Uncreation is such a banger title. A lot's riding on this third book. But, I mean, if it were at the same level of Eyes of the Void and Shards of Earth, I would say I was happy I read it all 3. So hopefully that gives you kind of an idea. No nut button for this one, but definitely very excited to continue on with this. And Tchaikovsky is definitely a writer I'm going to keep reading from. I'm already kind of like lining up some of his other stuff, thinking about what I can get to next year. So, okay, there's a bunch of people. There's still some praise coming in for Don Winslow as well, which is always great. But Winslow's, Eyes of the Void, let's go. Final Architecture. Congrats, Jimmy. You're slowly resolving your issues. You mean my issue of starting too many series? More book 2s than book 1s. That goes against book 2 policies. Blocked and reported. I understand, but while you do that, go ahead and like and subscribe. Such a great trilogy. Shards was my favorite. Okay, so you're a fan of the first book. I've seen most people really like the third book the most. That's the one I see praised the most often, but just a lot of people really like this trilogy, and I get it. Also, I meant to say this when I was recapping this. This would be such a cool movie series. I don't really want it to be a television series. Like I said, there's a little bit of stalling in book 2, maybe a little bit of repetition. I think you could make a really, really good movie or movies of these, and they would be amazing. And for some reason, I really like sci-fi in the theater. Dune has like reignited that into me. Interstellar. I'm also thinking of the first new Star Trek by J.J. Abrams back in the day was also pretty sick in theaters. So I definitely hope that this would be adapted at some point. Standalones are technically book 1's fact check and complete. Jimmy is lying. Okay, you got me there. Fair enough. ZK and AK said, just finished Shroud this month. I for sure reading more Tchaikovsky books in the years to come. Me too, for sure. StoryTube. I can't get over how hilarious the flappy beard looks when you talk, and I say this as a bearded person. Yes, this is Yolanda. I love that. Glitch said, I have doubts that reading this book will accrue me greater wealth status. Might skip it and reread Grindset 101, How to Hustle. Give me the cliff notes on that whenever you get to it, please. All right, people are reporting me for spreading falsehoods about book 1s and 2s. Brutal. Rebecca said, I want to read Tchaikovsky, but he writes too much. I agree with you. I actually saw it as kind of a red flag. And, would the books be better if he wrote less? Probably. I'm a pretty firm believer in that. But I think he's a hell of a writer. And there's something about him, I've said this before, but there's something about him that feels a little bit more of a throwback to like the old books that I used to write in the sci-fi genre back in the day is George R. R. Martin. So there's something about that vintageness of it that I really, really enjoy. Samwise said, I've heard these books are Lovecraftian. Would you agree with that, Jimmy? I'm probably not the good person to ask because I'm not versed in Lovecraft, but I have also heard many people describe that as this. So, I mean, as far as just like cosmic horror stuff, I would say yes, I think. Tchaikovsky just forgot he wrote because his fingers actually cross the sound barrier when he types. Repetition is only natural. The man is prolific. Brent said, I thought Lords of Uncreation book 3 was easily the best of the series. That is very encouraging. And Brent also loves the names and titles of the Asil. Yeah, the Asil, I mean, the book titles are pretty fantastic. The only one I hate is the Hugh. And if you read the books, you know what it is. I think calling something the Hugh is so stupid. Like Hugh, H-U-G-H. For some reason, with all the other names that are so cool and memorable, the Hugh is just like, what were we thinking here? Like, did he run out of words? But yeah, for the most part, great naming, and the books are obviously incredibly named. So Samwise asks, could it be authors who pump out books super quickly since both Brandon and Adrian do that? There are also authors that don't. Like, Hobb got pretty repetitive in the final books of the Realm of the Elderlings. I think it was probably a publisher deal, like our editor possibly. But I wouldn't say Hobb is like the fastest writer of all time. So I don't think it's exclusive to those who write fast or are very prolific, but it could be. I could see a correlation between them. So Sarah Beth said, I'm excited to finally start the Timer of Philosophers. My interest in that is skyrocketed. I've also heard there's like short stories set in that series now, which is kind of neat. Wow, what an absolute hit piece this was. I don't know about this. I'd prefer the delayed nut button for book number 3. Okay. I might do a little delay, possibly. Yeah, if anyone's kind of hesitant to read Adrian Tchaikovsky because of how much he writes, I get it. But I'm telling you, you should definitely at least try it. And Ogres is fantastic. And my friend's reading Dogs of War and really enjoying that as well right now. So I'm kind of keen to give that one a shot. Auntie Book says, I prefer sci-fi and visual medium and fantasy and literary mediums. Interesting. It's probably because Hollywood does sci-fi better, dare I say. Like if you looked at pound for pound, I think sci-fi movies end up looking better. The fantasy aesthetic can just be really, really hard to pull off, so. Publisher, the book sold well. Tchaikovsky, cool. Here's 2 more. Want 7 more books? I wrote them all this year. Yeah. JCM Burns said, still amazed that Tchaikovsky wrote all that amazing classical music and now he switched over into sci-fi. I feel like this is a joke that is just so over my head. Or there's a fun fact about Tchaikovsky I don't know about, but the good news is that no one expects me to know anything, so I'm not that embarrassed. Rid said, I don't read a ton of sci-fi, but I love watching it. I think prefer Rival as a movie to Ted Chiang's short story. I would agree with you, and I also thought Annihilation, the movie, was just as good as the Annihilation book, and I love both. So, are you supposed to be a skinny Germ? Hey, Germ's lost a lot of weight. He's looking good. Hot take, but I think authors should only get to write book. Imagine a world where every single book was a magnum opus. Okay. Brett said Shroud was excellent. I much prefer Tchaikovsky's sci-fi to his fantasy. I guess I would kind of agree. Cage of Souls is kind of a blend of the two, and that's the one I really didn't like. I guess I haven't really read a lot of outright fantasy. I guess Ogres is kind of fantasy-ish. But now that I'm thinking about it, I guess, yeah, like I haven't read Shadows of the Apt, which is his 10-book series. I own the first book. I'm very interested in it, but I'm hyped for Tchaikovsky's Redwall-like novel coming next year. That could be very cool. Foundation TV series has the best visuals I've ever seen. I've heard that past season 1, like season 2 and 3, really, really good. JCM Byrne is confirming I'm an idiot. Sorry, bad joke. There's a composer, Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky, probably unrelated. You don't know that. Maybe it's a very talented gene pool. Speaking of Annihilation, I just found a used bookstore. Oh, $3 or $4, perfect. You'll read it in a day. Shall we go on to the next? And the next 2 books are horror. Avert your eyes if you're easily frightened. Not really. Okay, Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House. I am very positive about this book. So full disclosure, this is actually a book that I wanted to read many years ago when The Haunting of Hill House came out, the TV show. I still to this day think it's one of my favorite things that Netflix has ever done. It's one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And I just really love everything that Flanagan does for the most part. There's some stuff that he's been attributed to. The Midnight Club is one thing. I wasn't a huge fan of that. But anyways, everyone said, oh, if you love the television show, do not read the book because it's nothing like it. And I will say, if you're a big fan of the show, don't go into the book expecting what you got out of the show. It's very loosely inspired. I mean, there's some little stuff here and there. The haunted house part is pretty similar, but very, very different takes. Though the TV show, I think stylistically is fairly subtle. It has a couple jump scares. This book is so creepy in a subtle way. And as it says below, this is Gothic, haunted house, and all about isolation. Such a short book, but impactful book. And the thing that I ended up taking away from it is that I really love horror. I've read a lot of horror. I shouldn't say a lot of horror. I'm sorry. I've read a lot of different type of horror, not like a ton of one thing. But I've read like grotesque stuff. Like I'm reading the Drowned Cathedral, or the Cathedral of the Drowned, the sequel to the Spider Moon Crypt. God, I can never remember that book's title. It doesn't matter. Nathan Ballingrud, I think, is the author. But it's disgusting. I mean, it's kind of sci-fi horror. It's very trippy. I would say Lovecraftian would probably be what people would throw at it, I assume. But it's like pretty graphic and disgusting and weird. And I think The Haunting of Hill House is a different take on this. Like I'm also thinking of the book I read, Brother, last year, I think around Christmas time or Halloween time. And I liked it good enough. It's like, it's kind of like The Hills Have Eyes or Wrong Turns, your typical West Virginia horror novel. But I definitely prefer the more subtle. I really felt like this reminded me of, is it Our Share a Night or We Own it's the Maria Enriquez book. I'm blanking. This is terrible. Anyways, Shirley Jackson has been a huge inspiration in the horror genre, and I feel like what I would like to do now is to find people who were inspired by this and wrote more stuff, because when I left the book, the only thing I could say is that I wish there was a little bit more to go on. Like I kind of wish the book was a little bit longer. It's not something you really hear me say all that often, but I thought that this book was beautifully written from the get-go. I was like, okay, this is going to be slower pace. I kind of been warned. Don't expect the TV show. So I went with it probably with the right expectations and just was really blown away by Shirley Jackson. And I know Joanna from Joanna Reads is a big fan of her short stories, and The Lottery being the one I think that she recommends the most. And then I think she actually just read another Shirley Jackson novel. I'm going to read more from Jackson, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I don't know what's considered her magnum opus or like her most popular work. I think it's Hill House, but I don't know that for a fact. But if you're looking for kind of an eerie, creepy, haunted house / poltergeist kind of horror that doesn't have a lot of like those big scares on the page, a lot of it's more psychological, a little bit more hushed. Here you go. There's a little trickle here and there of stuff that might spook you, but it's way more about the atmosphere and the vibe. And then also, I think about Eleanor as a character is the fact that she is so isolated because she kind of refuses to assert herself in any situation. It's like she's alone in any room that she's in, no matter what. And I've always said one of the issues I've had in my life is that I can be in a room full of people and feel like I'm completely by myself. And I think that's the kind of loneliness that like haunts people. And Eleanor has that in this book. So I actually felt like I was kind of looking at myself in some ways. And asserting myself is something I struggled with probably until I was probably 24, 25, where I really started to kind of find my footing and knew what I wanted to assert about. Got to pick the right hills to die on, folks. But my point is that Eleanor is a very tragic character in many ways. Some of it is her own fault. Some of it I don't think quite so, but one that I did find pieces to relate to. So maybe that improved my taking in of the material in the book, even though it is very slow. If you have ever felt alone in a room full of people, I think that you could probably relate to Eleanor on some level. So this was awesome. I really loved it. This probably could have been overwhelmingly positive. I try not to hand them out like candy, so I went with very positive for the sole fact that I kind of wish there was a little bit more meat on the bones. This is a book I would love to reread, and honestly, there were so many things that were kind of like trippy and weird that I was like, I wonder if there's multiple interpretations of this book or scenes in this book. So it's definitely one that kind of stayed on my brain. Mrs. Nuts read this and enjoyed it as well. Just a really good spooky classic, and I highly recommend it for sure. Also, if you've not seen the TV show, you should watch the television show. It is fabulous, in my opinion. So I feel like this is probably one a lot of people read, maybe not, because it's so short. It's like less than 200 pages, I think. So you guys should definitely check it out if you have time. If you are feeling a little left out of the spooky season reads, this is a great one to try. StoryTube said Jimmy Tchaikovsky spells his name because the classical composer also spelled it that way. Adrian, I'm not going to try. I guess it's pronounced the same way. Tchaikovsky is his real name pronounced the same, though. I should have just continued reading the damn message. JC and Byrne wants to thank anyone who laughed at his joke. Jordan Drew said, I love this book. I read it to my wife while she was in labor. Good times. That's certainly a choice. During labor, what was your... man, see, I need to have you back on Chatting Nuts because that's a good half-hour segment right there of me just asking you a lot of questions about that scenario because I have many thoughts and curiosities about how this all went down and the reception, the motivation, the fallout. I'm very interested. Red Book said the one jump scare in The Haunting of Hill House took 10 years off my life, and I know exactly which one you're talking about because I forgot it was a horror show. I literally thought I was watching a family drama. Turns out it's a horror show, and I think that's the last time I screamed during a movie or a TV show, whatever, media. So, Fantasy Babble, I didn't know there was a show gonna have to watch it, dude. It's not fair to say, I like the book better than the show because they're so different. And you'll see this whenever you watch it, but you have got to watch The Haunting of Hill House. I almost want to rewatch it now. Ugh. The only Flanagan thing I like more than Haunting of Hill House is Midnight Mass. I agree. I think Midnight Mass is my favorite from him. Mrs. Nuts is here, and she said she really enjoyed Haunting of Hill House. She did. And I think that's like your first horror novel, right, Kels? Is that right? Flower Pixel said, I love the main character in Haunting of Hill House. There was some banter moments that didn't fit. The writing was so pretty. Yeah, and you're saying you would edit out some dialogue. The dialogue was a little bit weird, but I kind of took that into like the surrealness of it all and the eeriness of it all. Like some things did feel out of place, but maybe it was on purpose, maybe not. I don't know. But the writing is beautiful, for sure. I would agree with that. Monica says, the lottery left an impact on me in middle, and I still think of it years later. I hear that from a lot of people. I hear it's really messed up. Like, that's one of those things that people kind of give a warning, like, hey, just so you know, it's like a 2-page short story, but it's going to wreck you. Mrs. Nuts, you're awesome, and we appreciate you. Yes, we do. So Sir Jordan Drew says the ambiguous ending was mwah. I think I know what happened. I'd be curious to see what you think. Now I almost want to do a discussion for Hill House. The only problem is it's so short. I think you would have to like throw in the TV show comparison if you wanted to actually like get like a full hour or two out of that discussion. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to have a discussion only be like 20, 30 minutes. But I did see people discussing the ending. Brian Bell, I bought 100 full-size candy bars. I've had 5 kids come to the door, although none claimed I'm their father. Hey, better luck next year, bud. Jordan said, I love a good ambiguous ending. Haunting of Hill House was special. It was definitely special. And by the way, to be clear, ambiguous endings are actually my favorite endings most of the time. Apparently labor is boring. She was drugged out and I had time to kill when she ended. She was like, wait, what happened? The fact that she was in labor and you hit her with that ending is so crazy, dude. Have you watched The Fall of the House Usher? Defo more gruesome. Yeah, it's more gruesome. At some point, I started to kind of, I don't want to say check out, but maybe become a little numb to it. I still enjoyed that a lot. Like it's better than most of the things I see during the year, but not my favorite. So, The Witch, better than The Lottery. I'll die on this Joe Hill. I assume The Witch is also a Shirley Jackson short story. Zelia Green says The Good House by Tananarive Due always reminds me of Haunting of Hill House. I'll have to write that down. A lot of people are giving love for ambiguous endings. I love that. I asked for an ambiguous ending at a massage parlor and left unsatisfied. I hate to hear that, Joe. Did you ask for your money back? I hear trick-or-treaters outside. I hope they don't knock on my door. For what it's worth, if you like, we'd always lived in the castle too. Okay. I will try to write that down if I can. And that is probably my first horror. I think it was, Kels. I'm pretty sure it was. Good one to start with. Now, let me introduce you guys to my favorite horror read of the month. And unless if you were in like my Patreon hangout, probably don't even know what I'm talking about here, but it's a bit of a classic, and it is The Willows by Algernon Blackwood. Let me just say, Algernon Blackwood is absolutely a name that you would probably see in A Song of Ice and Fire in some minor house. Like, oh yes, Lord Blackwood. Actually, we do know that there are the Blackwoods. Remind me of Game of Thrones with the name. This is a classic. It is like 60, 70 pages, and this thing hammered me. So, two people going down in a canoe. I think it's a canoe, down a river somewhere in Europe, a place I can't pronounce. And as they go down, it almost feels like they're being watched by the Willows, that they do not belong. And things get very strange from there. This feels like an absolute critical read. If you are someone, not just that likes horror, but if you're someone who has ever liked weird fiction, I really felt like this had that vibe. I felt like I was completely out of my element with this. I did not know what to expect. I was kind of expecting like a little cutesy horror novel, and instead I was just kind of freaked out. And this book, or I guess story, if we're going to say 60, 70 pages, is almost like a big hallucination. And paranoia starts to set in with the characters, and I started to kind of feel it. And the word economy, the diction that Blackwood has writing this short story is absolutely second to none. The way the scenes are imagined and relayed through description, like just through the power of words. No cheap thrills, no cheap tricks, just straight up craft was able to, I don't know if I would say spook me, but unsettle me. If you have ever been out in the woods or in the desert or anywhere a bit remote, think Missing 411 if you're into that type of thing. And you kind of take a look around and you get this sudden feeling of uneasiness where you look around and you go, I'm not supposed to be here. Like you start to realize how far you are from things. This got me like that. And it kind of dives into it. And the way that it starts to like personify and give almost like living features and feelings to the wildlife around, I mean, really makes it feel like you're in some weird hallucination. And it is kind of spooky. I have been in many places out in nature where I just get this eerie feeling. This captures that beautifully. And the way and really the Swede, which is kind of the secondary character, doesn't have a name. The way that they start to interact and the things that they're seeing, and I can't give anything. It's so short. Just go. How about this? Go into it without any expectation other than it's going to be weird, and go into it knowing absolutely nothing except for these people are going down the river. And just experience it, and just really and just read the words. I mean, the way that Blackwood ties sentences together and uses the power of imagery is just masterful. Like I think it's a masterclass in that. If you are a writer and you've ever just really wanted to be someone who can write like a vivid scene with real atmosphere and real like tangible feelings, I think that this is the exact example that you should go with. I can tell you right now, I wish I had read this before I wrote my short story for my class last year, because this is 60, 70 pages and does everything a full-length novel could do. The ending is an ending. It's not going to be like the biggest it's not the most blockbuster ending of all time, but it is an ending. So it does get wrapped up, and you kind of just walk away from this thinking like, what in the hell just happened? But what an imagination on this person, and that just unsettling feeling of being surrounded in a place that you do not belong. It's kind of wild. It's kind of wild how effective this story was. And also, I think about like my place in the universe quite a bit. I think about my place in the world. I think about human beings as a whole and how weird all of this stuff really is that we're here. And I think that this is kind of like that. It kind of captures that as well. So, whew, wild, very wild. A lot of tension on the page for, very little events actually happening. So 60, 70 pages. I'm not going to say any more. I don't want to ruin it, but I am going to say this does get the nut button. Has to be up there with short fiction of the year for me. And I really, 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 really implore you to go check this out. I want to say it was like 99 cents on Kindle Unlimited, I think. Or you know what? No, I think I got it from the library, if I remember correctly. Super great story. Considered a horror classic, I believe, by most people. And it's definitely one that earns its reputation for sure. Now, this is one. If an author has been inspired by this, I also would like to read this. So I was just really pleased with both of my horror reads this year. Probably could have went with a little bit more variety, maybe done like some horror slasher, maybe something a little bit more crazy. But these two were just outstanding books. I just like Willows a little bit more. And I also am reading The Cathedral of the Drowned by Nathan Bellegrad, I believe is his name. And I really wanted to finish that. I said last stream that I was going to read that because it's a new release. It's a book 2 in a trilogy of novellas. And I just ran out of time. And I didn't want to force it. I'm enjoying it. I didn't want to rush through it. It's only like 136 pages or 126 pages, I think. So I'll wrap that up in November and talk about that. That's definitely a different type of horror. I'm hoping to pull some quotes from that one to give you an idea of just how grotesque that thing is. But woo, really, really good. Wait, can you please define going down in a canoe? I can think of at least riding down a body of water in a boat-like structure. How about that? How about that? Brendan Park. What's up, Brendan? Friday night Halloween was epic as a kid. Too bad parents these days don't let their kids off a leash. I don't know. There's a lot of trick-or-treaters running around my neighborhood. They're off the leash, bro. They are off the leash here. I can tell you that. They're good kids, though. They're very excited, but they're good kids. Lord Blackwood is the name of the sorcerer in the RDJ Sherlock Holmes movie. Good to know. Flower Pixel said, I love the Willows. It reminded me of Annihilation. And then at one point, someone even said Annihilation. That is a really great comparison, Pixel. Really, really great comparison. K Fox Great said, the Willows has been on my TBR. Curious to see if one of T. Kingfisher's books drew some inspiration from it. I almost picked up a bunch of Kingfisher's short horror stuff, but I didn't. And when I say short, I mean they're like novellas. I would love for someone to tell me what Kingfisher to start with. And K-Fox, you absolutely should read this immediately. Really. Glitch said, I'd had felt completely at home going down that river, Jimbo. I strut down O Block like it ain't a thing. Rest in peace, King Vaughn. ZK at AK said, I got lost in some actual willows while hunting a moose with my dad last year. Willows can in fact be terrifying when the willows are so tall that they hide the moose. That is kind of crazy. You might appreciate this story quite a bit. Are there any actual willows on that cover? You tell me. The picture's a little low res. It's an old story. Sorry. They're haunted by the grim, dark Tom Bombadil. You're going to have to read and find out. Monica said, Jimmy, have you watched Parasite? I have. And it's one of the better movies I've seen in recent times. Can you please finish The Winds of Winter? Well, I'm busy right now, but I'll get right back to writing whenever this is done. I promise. Depending on how long the Patreon pick is. Algernon Blackwood is my stripper name. It's pretty good. Oh my goodness. It's all in your head. When you consider that our entire lives get interpreted in our heads, psychological horror done well is amazing. I like that, Derry. Absolutely. How Cathedral of the Deep from DS3 pilled is Cathedral of the Drowned. Not very, unfortunately. Rodrigo said The Willows is the best short story I've read, along with The Cathedral by Raymond Carver. I need to get into more Algernon Blackwood ASAP. The Wendigo will be next. Okay, I didn't know that Blackwood wrote The Wendigo. I've heard of this. I would love to read more stuff by Blackwood. And I do think that this is a near perfect execution of the type of story it's trying to go for. It's crazy. Someone said, yeah, it kind of sounds like Annihilation. If you liked Annihilation, you could absolutely like this. Yeah. Bart, you should check this out, dude. You should really check it out because it's in that weird fiction vein, but also on top of that, it's so short. It's so short. I think you would have a blast with it. Hey, Jimmy. You should definitely read A Strange and Sometimes Sadness by Kazuo Ishiguro. It's a short story that is sort of like the precursor to Pelvio Hills and explores some of the themes. Casper, thank you very much. I actually did not hear of this. I've just been working my way through his novels. I will 100%. I'm going to read every single thing that Ishiguro ever wrote. So this will get read. But I'm glad you made me aware of this. I actually did not know he had written any short fiction. So that's amazing. Every Man Reads, what's up? Said, we talked Shirley Jackson already. Goated book, if so. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Kingfisher, you can start with What Moves the Dead, retelling of the fall of House Usher. I saw it at the store. I'll pick it up tomorrow. It's actually very exciting. The Newfie Pirate, what's up? Said, Speaks to Nightbird was absolutely my book of the month for October. Out of all the Robert McCammon there is to read, that is the one that I am the most excited to read. If it was just slightly shorter, man. King Von would have loved the Willows. I'd like to think so. That wraps up my reading for the month. So a good amount of short stuff, but also 2 longer books. Power of the Dog and Eyes of the Void, especially Eye of the Void, are not short books by any stretch of the imagination. Very close to getting the Cathedral book done, but wasn't quite able to get it through. So unfortunately, that is actually all that I have to wrap up in the reads-wise. But I have a lot of plans and a lot of stuff I'm actually currently reading that's going to get finished in November, but it's your favorite time of the month. And sometimes mine, but also sometimes my least favorite moment of the month, because it's very stressful to find out what I have to read in front of me. And like I said, this is a really busy month personally for me, but also stacked with reads. I didn't commit to many reads this year, but my goodness, they all kind of showed up in November. But we're going to do the Patreon pick of the month. I got to get a better jingle than that. Okay, here's your list. There is a lot more people on this than last time. I've been seeing like a huge boost in support on Patreon, which has been really amazing and really humbling since episode 100. I guess you guys all enjoyed that, which was really cool. These picks come from the top 2 tiers, which is the Night's Watch and the Kingsguard. But I want to thank everybody who donates on Patreon, but also anybody who just watches the channel. I greatly appreciate you. And we are now going to see exactly what you all have in store for me in the month of November, my birth month. So let's hope and let's pray that it's something decent. I just got to look at myself. I kind of look like David Cross on bath salts. Would anyone else agree? Like a young David Cross, like Scary Movie 2. Come on, someone's got to agree. This is actually Jose's first time in the list. I'm really excited. Like I said, Jose, I'm just glad we didn't scare you away with the Kingsguard hangout, my friend. And thank you, Rebecca, for the happy birthday. It is November 21st, is mine. So here we go. Let's find out what I'm reading. Right. I legit kind of get a little nervy. I get a little nervy. All right. I have the ball in my hand. I'm going to seal this up, put this over here. And remember, if I select you and I've already read the book or you've been selected, you didn't change your pick, we're moving on. We got to go to the next one. I hate to do it, but all right. The winner is... Oh, God, I have literally no idea what this is. Number 47. Let's see if you guys can see that. Number 47, which is Regina's pick, The Heretic's Guide to Homecoming by Sienna Tristan. I have no idea what this is. It sounds like it would be short. That's my guess. This just sounds like a short book. So we're going to hope that that's the case, so that I don't get super stressed. I'm about to Google this live right now because I have never heard of this thing in my entire life. Regina, congratulations, by the way, and thank you for the pick. Greatly appreciated. Let's do a little bit of research here. So the Heretic's Guide to Homecoming. Okay, by Sienna Tristan. Okay, the cover looks pretty generic. And it was originally published in 2018. All right, let's see how long it is. That's the first thing. 446 pages, and it's also a book one. 400 is a little big, but hey, it'll be okay. Triple gold medalist in the 2019 Independent Publisher Book Awards, winner of the 2019 Reader Reviews Award for Fantasy. Life is transformation. You change or you die. Ashamed of his past and overwhelmed by his future, Renoa Giannevefa Eliza Dena Pianovi, I don't know, feels too small for his own name. After a graceless exit from his homeland in the Arcarione Desert, his anxiety has sabotaged every attempt at redemption. Aside from a fiery devotion to his godling, the one piece of home he brought with him, he has nothing. That is, until he meets Relin, bewildering Relin who whisks Renoa up in a cross-continental pilgrimage to the most sacred place on the planet. The people they encounter on the way, children of the sea, a priestess and her band of storytellers, a lonely ghost of monsters, are grim, whimsical, in equal measure. Each has their part to play in rewriting Renoa's personal narrative. Okay, so it sounds like it's going to be pretty personal. I imagine it's going to be pretty tight to the character. That's my guess. And it sounds like we're going on a quest of finding oneself. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't read anything I would classify as that in a minute. So I think that this is going to be pretty cool. I'm actually kind of excited about this, and I've never heard of this. Once again, I'm going to read it off one more time if I can see this on my tiny screen. The Heretic's Guide to Homecoming is the November pick of the month. Regina, congratulations. I love when it's a book I have never heard of. This has happened a couple times in the past and ends up being, in the top 10 books of the year. So it could be pretty awesome. It is a book one. No guarantees I'll read book two, but I hope I enjoy it. And I will definitely report back. 400 pages, not too bad. I agree, Fantasy Fanatic. I feel like that's like kind of where I'm at. Like that's like the max currently, unless if it's something that I'm reading in a series or something like that. So Scotty BK, he's definitely David Cross vibes, bro. Thank you very much. This was a very interesting point to jump in the stream. Oh, has anyone in the chat read this? I gotta know. Radu Andre said, "Did you finish The Wayward Inn?" I'm assuming you mean what is that shit called? What's that thing called? The Wandering Inn? No, I DNF'd that bad boy. I hated it. Who the heck is Regina? I've never seen a Regina. Russian bot? No, Regina is real. Not many reviews. Yes, it seems like it's indie published, so I'm hoping that it's good. What's up, Molly? It is in fact Jimmy R.R. Martin here, not George. George is busy. He's writing Wins a Winner. Mitch, I expect the full report of your psychedelic experience. Let's hope. 8-time winner of the Buckeye News Hawk Award. Man, that is a deep cut. I love it. Tyson, I'm so glad you brought this up. I want you to read the new Joe Hill, King's Sorrow, but it's a big boy. I am very interested in this, and the next time I have availability and in the mood to read something that's huge, which does happen. I know I go on and on and on about short books, but there are a lot of times wherever I'm, saying, okay, time to pick up a bigger book now. I'm very interested in King's Sorrow. I have seen almost exclusively good things about it from a lot of different type of readers and different people. Some people who love Joe Hill, some people who hated his other stuff, people who have never even read him, didn't even know it was Stephen King's son. And I've heard that it might possibly be connected to some of Stephen King's works, which is really exciting. So I am very interested in King's Sorrow. I would definitely say it's in the upper part of my TBR. Got bumped up pretty high. So, okay. Cranky Pants said my library ebook loan for King's Sorrow just came in. Nice. It's everywhere here. It's selling really, really well from what I can tell. So I've been talking about what I'm going to be reading in November, so let's go over it. No Life Forsaken by Stephen Erickson came out, which is book 2 in the Witness series, which is the sequels to the Malazan Book of the Fallen 10-book series. I'm reading it. I just got through part 1, and it is absolutely fabulous. It's better than God Is Not Willing so far, and feels so much like the original 10. And feels like coming home in some ways, even though the new characters, new places, whatever. it feels like Erickson kind of just firing on all cylinders. And it reminds me so much of what I love about his writing, what I love about Malazan, and just how good fantasy can be. So to say that I'm having a good time would be a vast understatement. What else am I reading in November? I'm going to finish the Cathedral of the Drowned. I'm going to read the Patreon pick, and then I am continuing the Rune Lords. I read book 1 about 2 months ago, and now I am continuing on with a few people in my Discord. Brotherhood of the Wolf, I believe, is book 2, and I am only one chapter, a prologue and one chapter, and actually really enjoying it. I would say the opening of this is far better than the first book. Just my opinion. We'll see how it goes. That's a big book. It's really got to deliver. It is going to be on a very short leash just because there's 2 more books that I want to read in the series. I'm only going to read the first arc. I know there's more than that, but I'm only going to read the first arc. So for me, Brotherhood of the Wolf has to deliver big time. I liked Rune Lords book 1, but it's got to do something pretty cool here. And there's a certain thing I'm expecting plot-wise, which I won't say for spoiler's sake. So let's see. I'm doing that. So that's Brotherhood of the Wolf, Rune Lords book 2, No Life Forsaken, Cathedral of the Drowned, which I'm almost done with, and also the Patreon pick. I feel like there's another book I'm forgetting that I pledged to read, and this always happens every single time I stream. So I guess I could talk about what I want to read before the end of the year, what might get thrown in this month if I have time, which I don't expect to. Lords Fun Creations, probably number 1 priority, finishing off the final Architecture trilogy. And then outside of that, the only other book that I know I'm for sure going to read this year is Mage's Blood by David Hare, the Moontide Quartet fantasy series. That's definitely going to be read. And then I have a lot of literary fiction that I want to get to, but that's probably going to either be sprinkled in towards the end of the year or more so in 2026. By the way, I have something in January. It's going to be a read-along of sorts. I've really not done a lot of official read-alongs. I always encourage you folks to read the books I'm reading so you can come back into the stream the next month and kind of talk to me about it in the chat or leave them in the comments. But I'm actually going to have like a structured read-along for a series that I missed out on that I think everyone else in the world has read, and I'm going to be experiencing for the first time with no spoilers, which is pretty cool. I'm not going to tell you what series it is. It's probably not what you think, but it's definitely one that a lot more people have read than some of this other stuff that I read. So I'm hoping that it'll be cool. Get some new blood here in the chat and in the comments. But honestly, I'm just happy with everyone that's here very, very much. Maternal Pillow said, well, here I go. I start Malazan over again. No Life Forsaken delivered today. It is so damn good, dude. Rogue said, I think Rune Lord's first arc gets better as it goes. That's what I've heard. I've heard it just gets better and better and kind of gets ramped up, and the existential threat becomes more prevalent, which is what I'm interested in. Rid said, loving No Life Forsaken so much. Me too. I've been laughing a lot. I don't doubt that they're nearly opposite books, but I read The Blur for King Star, and it's heraldly similar to Guards in premise. Yeah, I think it's vastly different, though. I'm pretty sure. Like, there's a dragon. I think that's about it, isn't it? I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Did they confirm there were 2 different covers for No Life Forsaken? I remember changing it, but I think I got the rarer one. I do not know. Everyone give it up for Monica. Monica, this is right. Strength of the Few by James Islington comes out this month. This is the sequel to The Will of the Many, a book that I was very mid on until the ending, and I thought the ending was absolutely just stupid good and interesting and very, very, very out there, and he's taking a big chance doing what he's doing. So I signed on for book 2, even though 90% of Will of the Many I was not super keen on. So I will be starting The Strength of the Few. I have no illusions that I will finish it in November, but maybe I will. I don't know. Maybe it'll grab me. Islington's pretty easy to read, so we'll have to see. Somebody give me a huge recap for The Will of the Many so I can remember all those stupid names. But yeah, I will be starting The Strength of the Few. So Monica, thank you so much for reminding me, because I would have panicked had I not. So Paloma said Brotherhood of the Wolf is also a great wacky genre-defying French film from a few years back. Good to know. When are we reading Black Swan Green and Accession? I've been thinking about Culture series by Ian M. Banks a lot lately, And Accession is at the very top of my sci-fi TBR right now. Black Swan Green, I'll fit in just whenever I want to read David Mitchell, which is essentially all the time. So who knows when, but I'll let you know, Mitch, and we'll read it together. Okay. Jimmy, do you have any plans to read Steinbeck over the next year or so? Yes. Yes. I would like it to be East of Eden, but it might end up being Mice of Men. Mice and Men. Shadows Upon Time side book here comes out soon. Don't know if you're interested for now. I still have to read book 6. I'm kind of waiting to see the reception of book 7 before I rush out and go read it, just because I was not a huge fan of book 5, 4 or 5 for the most part. And I still have to read book 6, which is not a short book, but I will finish Sun Eater undoubtedly. It's just how fast will I actually finish Sun Eater. Ooh, what series? Rebecca, I can tell you in DMs, but I'm going to keep it under wraps for now. Mainly because I want to see what I'm going to do with it first. Like, I have some ideas about how I'm going to go about reading along with folks, and I'm still ironing that piece out. David Hare is great. I did fall off at some point. I need to finish that because he has a new series. Night, Jimmy, and don't worry about the hangout. I was a bit drunk, so I had to go. Wasn't feeling too well next time. Be more about it. You're good, Jose. You're the man. You're the man. Always love seeing you in chat, dude. I don't mind being old blood. The old blood's where it's at, Derry. Jimmy Finally Cave is doing his own Narnia read-along. I would rather get another colonoscopy than read Narnia. Apparently, there's a good recap on his website. English Moose Boy, you are the best. This is such good news. Like, very, very needed. The ending's a bit convoluted. Derry said, I don't have a blender. Shout out to me for getting 2 batches of cookies to the creamed butter and sugar stage during today's CWN. Good job. I'm proud of you. Jing said, no Shadows Upon Time, Jimmy. Not until I read Disquiet Gods, unfortunately. It's all of Wandering in 1 month. Could you imagine how miserable I would be? The channel would cease to exist, unfortunately. Will a Maternal Pillow said, will the read-along be on your channel or behind your Patreon? No, it'll be on the channel. And probably, so here's the thing. I will probably do a live stream for each book. And those, I was thinking about making it a part of Chatting with Nuts, but because I'm going to be talking spoilers, it might be its own stream, like standalone stream, which I'm really not doing a lot of anymore. Like, I kind of want everything to be Chatting with Nuts. Like, I want Chatting Nuts to be a lot of things, more of a variety. But because it'll be spoilery, I would probably prefer it to live in its own stream so people can just refer to that and not have to like sift through an episode of Chatting with Nuts or In a Nutshell or whatever, right? So, yeah, it will not be behind the Patreon. So, live streams are fun. I hope you like them because that's all I do now. I am a book streamer. I'm not even a booktuber. I'm just a book streamer at this point. So, folks, I appreciate you being here on Halloween. I know there's a lot of places that you could be. You could probably be eating a bunch of candy. I hope you are. Make sure you brush your teeth. Don't get cavities. It's always the worst. But folks, thanks for being here. Thanks for another month. Just Power of the Dog. Go read it. So good. It's so absurdly good. And also read The Willows. It's awesome. But I'm hoping that you have a great reading month in November. I will be back with Chatting with Nuts, probably a more normal episode in the next few weeks. And then I might do something near my birthday for a birthday stream. I always kind of like doing those, like celebrating with you folks. And we'll be back with another Patreon pick next month around this same time, which is very exciting. Let me know what you're reading in the comments below. If you're watching this after the fact, I appreciate you being here. There are timestamps, which you probably already do because it's the end of the video. That's it. I love you guys very much. And until we see you next time. Oh, wait, I got to tell you, like and subscribe that thing, but there's also a Patreon description. It's optional, but always appreciated. See, I'm getting, Germ's getting a little forgetful at his old age. But until we see you next time, be good, be safe, and remember to always keep turning the page.